Hello and welcome to Stampin' Peace with Mary Knabe. Today, for day 2 of my 14 Days of Love series, I'm going to show you how to make 2 cards, and I'm featuring the Adoring Hearts bundle. This includes the stamp set as well as a hybrid embossing folder with a die set. In day 1 of the series, I used the hybrid embossing folder to cut out some hearts. So today I'm going to show you how you can use this piece. Some would call it the negative piece, some would say throw it away. We are going to use it. So I'm going to flip my camera around now, and then I'm going to show you how you can make 2 wonderful cards using this piece of die-cut cardstock left over from my die-cut hearts. The first thing we're going to do with this die-cut cardstock, and I started out with a 6x6 piece yesterday in my day 1 of the series. The reason I started with a 6x6 piece of cardstock is because it fits exactly in this embossing folder. So I wanted to take full advantage of the embossing folder with the die. So I'm going to take this 6x6 piece, and I want to cut 1/4 of an inch from the bottom and the top. 1/4 inch off the bottom, and then I'm going to flip it and cut 1/4 inch at the bottom so that it measures 5.5 inches tall now. The next thing I'm going to do is cut at 4 inches. Okay, I've got it in the correct position. My heart's in the correct position. And I'm just going to slide it over till I get to the 4-inch mark. And I'm going to cut right there. So now I have a 4-inch by 5.5 inch piece and a 2-inch by 5.5 piece. And I'll be using both of these to make my 2 cards. For the first card, I'm using a real red card base. Just going to use my bone folder to give that a nice crease. I have a piece of 5 1/4 by 4 inch basic white cardstock to put on the inside of my card. We always like a nice white or vanilla or a light color to make it easier to write messages on and for the recipient to read your notes or any stamped sentiment. Then I'm going to cover this with a piece of Most Adored Specialty Designer Series paper. This is a Celebration 2024 freebie with a $50 purchase. And I've cut this to the exact same size as the card front. So it measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to use my fingers on a couple of the sides to help match up my edges. And I think that looks good. Then I'm going to take that 4-inch by 5.5-inch piece of red cardstock with the die cut hearts, and I'm going to, excuse me, add some dimensionals to the back. I'm actually going to use some small dimensionals in the 4 corners since that space is a wee bit smaller. I am putting more dimensionals than I usually use on this piece because I want to be sure that the whole area, the whole piece stays popped up well. And that will show off the heart openings. Take your pick tool can be a handy tool to use to pick off those dimensional backings. And now I'm going to center this left to right. So I'll have a little bit of the DSP showing on each side, plus through the hearts. Now I'm going to add my sentiment. I have a 4-inch by 3/4 inch piece of white cardstock. Before I stamp my message, I am going to banner cut each of the ends. The banner's Pick-a-Punch that I'm using is one of my most favorites and probably the most used punch that I have. I'm going to stamp the sentiment to my Valentine in real red. To my Valentine is part of the Adoring Hearts bundle. I like on my glass mat that I can use the lines there and the measurements to make sure that my cardstock is straight when I'm stamping. Of course, it helps that I'm using a photopolymer stamp set because I can see right through it. And that helps me make sure that I'm stamping straight. And I'm going to put my banner or my sentiment right here. And then I'm going to add a little bit of bling to my card. And I'm using today the Rhinestone Basic Jewels. I'm going to use 5 rhinestones. On the top corner, I'm going to use a small, medium, and large. I love that these come in 3 sizes. And then I'm going to put 2 at the bottom. I think I'll put that medium size and then a small size. And that completes my first card using that leftover Real Red cardstock from day 1 project. So let's pull out that second piece, the 2-inch wide piece, and make another card using that. Oops. For this one, I'm using a card base of Flirty Flamingo. Again, I have a piece of basic white measuring 4 inches by 5¼ inches to put on the inside of my card. Remember, if you want to include a stamped sentiment or image on the inside of the card, I'm going to suggest that you stamp that before you adhere it, just in case you make a mistake or it's not straight and you want to try again. You can flip over that white cardstock and do that. Now, this piece of the Most Adored Specialty Designer Series paper measures 2.5 inches by 5.5. Okay, 2.5 by 5.5. And I'm going to adhere this near the fold, but I'm going to leave a small space between the fold and the DSP. I want some of that Flirty Flamingo cardstock showing through. Then I will add some dimensionals to the back of the Real Red cardstock. And, oops, I need another sheet. Here we go. I do always use the entire sheet. I'll take my snips and cut around that border of dimensionals so I get some smaller pieces, because I like to completely use up my dimensional sheets. No waste. Okay, I think that's ready. And use my Take Your Pick tool to remove those adhesive backings. This is a nice way to dispose of those adhesive backings also, because I can just swipe them off right into my wastebasket. And I will center this on top of the Designer Series paper, just like that. Once again, I'm going to stamp to my Valentine on this piece of basic white. However, I want to banner cut my ends first. This is the Banner's Pick-a-Punch, one of my very favorites. And once again, I will stamp with Real Red ink. I love our Real Red color. It is, I think, the truest red I have ever come across. Center that up. Okay, add a couple of dimensionals to the back of that sentiment. And this one I'm going to put right here. So it's, well, I could center it in the card, or I could scoot it over. I could even do an angle. I think I'm going to center it right on the front of the card, just like that. And then I will add some rhinestones. And on this card, I'm going to put 3, one of each size: large, medium, and a small, just like that. So that is the completion of my second card. You know, I was thinking right here where I put these other 2 dimensionals, maybe I don't want to do that because I already have dimensionals under the red part. So maybe the better option here is just to have 1 dimensional on the far right, and then just put some Stampin' Seal. Or you can even put this down with our multi-purpose glue, our green glue, as some people call it. That way, it won't be too bulky. The other thing, I don't know if you noticed this, but when I had the 2 dimensionals on this part, it raised it higher because it has the dimensionals under the red cardstock. So this was lower, a little hump, and then it came higher. So to keep it all flat, I'm going to use the regular adhesive on this side and just one-dimensional. That makes this the same height as the red cardstock there. All right, so here are my 2 cards I made using that negative space that was left over from my day 1 project, where I used the Hybrid Embossing Folder and die to cut out those 9 hearts from the 6x6 Real Red cardstock. So thank you for spending part of your day with me and watching this second video in my 14-day series of love. Tomorrow, I'm going to be showing you how I will use the other 6 hearts, okay? Cuts out 9. I used 3 on one of the square pillow boxes yesterday. I used the, oops, that's my sample. You don't want that. This. So here are our 2 completed cards made from that negative space left over from when I die cut the hearts using the Adoring Hearts Hybrid Embossing Folder. So tomorrow, for day 3 of my 14 Days of Love series, I'm going to make 2 cards showing you how I used up the other 6 hearts that I cut out. So I hope you'll come back tomorrow and check out my day 3 projects. Thanks for joining me. Happy stamping always.